Bonjour, bonsoir, dear friends, and welcome to JCB Live. This is an exciting happy hour because we're going to go on the other side of the world in one of our favorite countries on the planet. And I know many of the Americans feel Irish, and many of the Irish feel American as well. You came a few centuries ago with a vision in mind to the US, and you've achieved it. Many of you stayed in the beautiful country of Ireland and came with a Scottish accent. Today we will be with a fabulous lady, one of the most charismatic lady in the world of wine, one of the most brilliant as well. She runs an incredible operation, over 30 shops throughout Ireland. But you'll see she has a little bit of an accent. The accent comes from the best whiskey country on the planet. Scotland, of course. She's charming, she's talented, she did the famous Masters of Wine, and she runs a great business, and she's created great organization for you ladies. We'll talk about that, and very importantly as well, she went besides, running a great wine operation to create her own wine. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased, honored, and flattered to bring Lynne Coyle with us. Woohoo! Lynne, did you see that cork?
I did. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Well, I wanted the cork to fly away like the town of Cork in Ireland. Cheers, Lynne.
Cheers. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's exciting because a few months ago we've celebrated St. Patrick's, my lovely wife's birthday, on March 17. And a month later, we're together with the famous Lynne. So cheers.
Cheers. It's like fate.
So Lynne, how does it feel to be Scottish and work in Ireland and dazzle in Ireland and be such a successful woman in the world of wine?
I feel very at home in Ireland because obviously everyone's Celtic together, and culturally Scotland and Ireland are very similar countries. So I moved from London to Ireland, and when I did that, lots of people assumed that I was moving from Scotland to Ireland, but moving from London to Ireland, I actually felt like I was coming home. And I'm very settled here, and it's a great country, great people, and a great attitude for life. I love Ireland.
And what makes the Irish so exciting? I mean, you said, what about Ireland, of course, but tell us about the Irish people, because we in France, as a Frenchman, we love them, as you know. Yeah. This is the long-term alliance against the English.
I think the Irish people are really motivated to go out into the world, learn about the world. They're very open-minded. They are a real family people. They're very connected to their families, but they also want to go out and spread the word of Ireland and bring ideas and skill sets back to this country. And motivated, positive, and really open to learning about new things, new ideas, and good business people, very good business people.
And how does it feel to be Scottish through London and now in Ireland? Tell us a little bit about, now that you are all not Ireland nor Scotland, but in many ways England is a little drifting away from the European community. Tell us a little bit about how it feels and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a business point of view, it's quite challenging. Just we have O'Brien's has 2 shops in London, so we're already seeing the challenges around just the difficulty of supplying the UK market now. We don't have any other business difficulties because the wines that we sell are coming directly through Europe, mainly from our wineries, and also even the New World wines are coming through European ports. So we're not having business difficulties, but I do think it's a bit of a pity, to be honest. On a personal level, I think it's a bit of a pity that the UK have left Europe. But I think down the road, we're going to find ways and routes and just means to get on with that change. And I think that the UK are an innovative people as well. And I think that everyone's trying to find solutions, particularly to trade. And I think that that is something that will improve as the months go on, as we get used to the new post-Brexit situation in the UK.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, of course, and I know you're very shrewd, so you'll find ways to make it work and to make it successful. Now, Lynne, you were born and raised in one of the most beautiful, breathtaking country on the planet, Scotland. Tell us a little bit about this and how you got into wine, because naturally whiskey is, of course, in your veins as well.
Yeah, and I am very interested in whiskey as well. I always think that Scottish whiskey industry and the differences between the different malts are like, the Bordeaux Chateau. Each one has its own individual personality, which has been influenced by the factors that influence the differences in the whiskey. So I think that that industry is very interesting, and it's a very, very interesting product as well. But my parents were hoteliers and restaurateurs. So in the beginning, I suppose I grew up in that industry, and I went on to study hotel management. I then went to work for for the Savoy Group, which at that time was the Savoy Hotel, Claridge's, the George Franklin Paris. I started with a graduate training scheme, which was really interesting, and then went back to Scotland. And after I was back in Scotland, I started to think about wine, because one of the hotels I was working in, we were looking to update the wine list. And I knew a bit about wine because I had studied wine as part of my college course. So updated the wine list. Then I was asked if I could buy the wines that I had suggested on the list. And in those days, there weren't producer names. It was basically a Chateauneuf du Pape or a Chablis or a Merceau or whatever. And
quite a good selection already.
Yeah.
A good start in my homeland.
I thought you would like those ones. And I just basically realised at that stage that I just found it really, really interesting. Just everything about wine, from the agricultural grape growing, the production, the end-to-end piece, and then obviously in the restaurants and hotels, you're selling the wine to the final customer, obviously with a meal. And I just got completely hooked.
So that won over the hospitality side of you. I mean, you still obviously run a tremendous amount of hospitality feel and emotion within all your stores, but that made the shift for you, that wine list, and that was the key moment that drifted you into the world of wine?
I guess I think that the interest had started to develop earlier, and I suppose the moment was actually in Italy, when I had left London and had gone to Italy to work for a bit in Tuscany. And I was invited to dinner at a friend's house, and he gave us a glass of Chianti after dinner. And I'll be honest, I was 21, hadn't heard it before, and I completely found the wine incredible. And he was explained the winemaking. It was his family winery. He was the Vignanesi family. And we literally sat there in front of the fire with small group of friends, talked about the wine, talked about the winemaking, the vineyards, and that was really the final kind of where I went, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Did you fall in love with him or the wine?
No, he was my friend's husband.
Well, you never know. That never impedes anyone. You know, love comes with emotion. But this is why we selected 21 for you today, because 21 years of age was the key moment for you. So tell us what you think about this Burgundy sparkling, because then we're going to move to California.
Yeah.
For the fun, we're going to travel all around. But we'd love your feedback of what you think of this bubble.
Well, I love the elegance of this wine. I love the crisp, refreshing acidity. And I always think that to have sparkling wine alternative to champagne is always something that our customers are really interested in. So something at this quality is obviously the type of wine that we would push people towards if they were champagne lovers, but who maybe didn't always want to buy champagne, or it wasn't always in the budget or whatever. So look, this is a delicious, really good quality. And also, I just think, as well as the freshness, the crispness, the good acidity, the balance, I love the fact it has got that touch of toasty, brioche type character, which of course I love as well. So it's delicious.
Ooh, thank you. What a description. Dear friends, did you hear the master of wine description? So, Lynne, walk us through this amazing path. So you in Italy, at the fireplace, charmed by your husband's friend. You're 21 years old, you transported. You already know wine in many ways, but now you convince. So what path did you take, and what advice do you give to others when that, unique emotion happened?
Well, I went back to Scotland after my stage in Italy, and I was back working in the hotel industry, and I decided to pursue formal wine exams. I already had undertaken a wine and spirit education trust exam at college, and I decided to progress that route. So I went to Napier University in Edinburgh and did the advanced cert, as it was called at the time, for the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. And then I decided to do the diploma. And I was still working in the hotel industry. But once I had the half of the diploma, I decided to go into the wine trade. And I sought advice from a very nice distributor in Edinburgh who told me, because I already, having looked at the industry and decided I couldn't make wine in Scotland, obviously, couldn't be a winemaker in Scotland, the part that appealed to me was to be a buyer, because that would expose me to as many wines as possible from around the world, and it would expose me to tasting, and it would expose me to visiting wine regions and meeting people in the industry and the agricultural side of wine, which I always find very interesting. So the very nice distributor told me that there was virtually no buying jobs in the world of wine, and the best thing to do was to start in retail with Oddbins in the UK at the time. And that's where I applied for and started working in Edinburgh in Oddbins, and continued with my diploma studies, and really got to learn about wine retail from the ground up in Oddbins. And then moved to London as an area manager, became a buyer in London, and basically never really considered any other career path. I just started it and kept going.
And in London, because it's a big move to go to the big city and kind of one of the capital of wine, we all know. You've mentioned curiosity, which is really part of your personality, and that's why I love your style. What happened in London, and how do you recommend to people to do it? Because what you did was very daring. You left, in a way, your family business, and the hotel industry to start your own path. I mean, it's pretty audacious.
Well, I married Joe, who I know you know, my husband, who's also in the wine industry, works for Liberty Wine. And we got married 6 months before, so we both went to London, so I had company. But it was quite audacious because we were both managing Oddbins stores in Scotland, and we both went down to London to work in the head office, if you like. He went into the sales side in the office, and I went into the sales side as an area manager running at the time 24 stores in the Thames Valley for the company. And it was audacious, and it was intended to be a 2-year stint. But to be honest, London's an incredible centre for wine, and it's just it's one of the most important wine centres in the world for wine, in terms of tastings, in terms of the opportunity to educate and learn more and become educated in terms of the career path. Obviously, there's a lot of companies in London, and I stuck with the same company, but it offered so much in terms of the world of wine. So we stayed in London. I must say, in the beginning, I literally, after the first day of driving on the M25 into London, I did seriously wonder what on earth we had done.
And then you made the big decision, before we talk about the Master of Wine, to run one of the leading operation of retail in the United Kingdom. I mean, that's a big deal. O'Brien, that you are, so with so much talent today, making the selection and running. So tell us about that as well, because it's very exciting to see a lady like you with so much power and so much say in setting up the trends.
Well, I mean, I was already on the board in London as a wine director, and Oddbins changed from Seagram, who were obviously a Canadian company, to they were bought by Castel Frere, the French company. So I had worked at a senior level in the UK in London, and in fact, while I was in London, I was approached by Diageo to come to Dublin to work for their distribution business. So we made a decision to move here with the children because they were 7 and 10 at that stage. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to experience a different country, but also a nice lifestyle move at that age for the children. And I worked for Diageo for 3 years, and Raymond O'Brien contacted me and asked me to go and work for O'Brien's, buying the wines. And I had my stint with a distributor. And I think I really was keen to get back into retail because the speed of retail, how quickly the decisions have to be made, the number of wineries that you're working with. Retail is basically, it's just, everything's fast. Everything is, on a large scale. And you're also very, very in touch with your customers all the time. So if you make the wrong move on a wine or you buy the wrong thing, you soon know because those managers will be on the phone or the customers give you feedback. So you're very much under scrutiny the whole time in terms of the decisions that you take. But I love that energy that you have in retail, and particularly with the brands, it's 34 shops. It's a small team. We all know each other, and we all really are very connected with what's happening with each other and within the shops and with the customers, with the range. And it's a great energy, it's a really motivational way to work with wine, I think, is retail.
And that's really the exciting part of it, is it's vibrant, as you said, it's fast-paced, and it's trend-setting. So what does entitle today to do what you do with so much talent? Give us the set of skills that are required to do what you do so you can inspire many ladies to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard work. I think anything in life is hard work if you want to do it properly. I think you have to be passionate. I think you have to have an attention to detail. I think people skills are really, really important. I mean, the olden days of buying, when you thumped the table and the buyer got everything you demanded, that was the way I was trained, but I don't ever think, I never really believed that was a good way to approach buying wine. And to be honest, as a family business, O'Brien's, it's so important for us to have long-term relationships. And it's about and I think that's probably the same for any business. And I'm sure it's the same, for sommeliers, as well as for buyers, as well as people working in retail or any part of the industry. Relationship, long-term partnership building, and the ability to see things from other people's point of view, not thinking you can have everything your own way the whole time. It's a compromise, and also just mutually respecting the people that you're working with, whether that's your suppliers, whether it's the managers in the shops, you know, whether it's our part-time staff who are working on a Saturday, everybody is there doing the best, and it's so important to be respectful of everyone that you're working with. And I think the wine industry, from that point of view, we're lucky because we work with good, interesting people that are passionate about what we do. And I think that's something that's really key in our industry.
So now is the time for a little Sauvignon Blanc, Lynne. I can see you moving even faster than me. I love it. What would you serve as great food with a Sauvignon Blanc from the Napa Valley, from the North Coast like this? Because, Lynne, you are the expert.
So this is obviously a cooler climate Sauvignon Blanc in the sense that it's from the North Coast, lovely and fresh, it's got good acidity, a hint of slightly exotic fruit in the mid-palate. But I think this style of Sauvignon, it would be absolutely delicious with smoked salmon, with grills, with salads. It's a very, very summery style. And it's got the freshness, it's got the aroma profile to stand alone as an aperitif, of course, with nibbles, which would be delicious, but would match beautifully with summery foods, for me anyway. And I particularly think it would be delicious with things like gambas and shellfish and so on. What would you normally serve this with, Joshua?
Well, my big question is, smoked salmon, Scottish or Irish? I have to go there, obviously. You're opening the gate.
Well, if I'm in Ireland, obviously it would be Irish, and if I was in Scotland, it would be Scottish.
I love them both, as you can imagine. So, well, that's a great description. Now, Lynne, you've been a phenomenal woman in the wine trade, and I want to ask you what led you to the Master of Wine. But before that, and that could be the evolution of the question, as a woman, a quarter of a century ago, you've been 25 years in the world of wine. How has it been? Where originally, specifically in London, 25 years ago, was more of a male-dominated kind of industry.
It was, and I suppose it's very on trend to think about this and talk about this just now in our current climate. But for me, when I started in the wine industry, there were virtually no female managers in the company I was working for. I was the first female board member. I was the first female area manager. So it isn't something that I really thought about. I was so determined to do what I wanted to do that the fact I was a woman didn't really cross my mind, if that doesn't sound completely strange altogether. But now I do realise that at the time it was, I guess, quite unique. And I now realise that it's so important for women out there to see other women in senior wine roles and senior roles in the wine industry and realise that it absolutely can be done and that you absolutely can move your career forward in the world of wine. But it's still a male-dominated industry. But it is fantastic to see more and more women in senior wine roles, and not just in the wine making side, but in the wine business side and the wine marketing side. I'm not quite sure how. I think you need a bit of luck, you need to work hard, and you can't take no for an answer. You just have to.
I love that.
And, I think it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's the wine industry or any industry, and whether you're a man or a woman, to be honest. I think there are so many people around that can tell you why you can't do something. And you either listen to them or you don't. And I didn't really listen to that kind of advice.
I love it. Is it why you created Woman Wine Spirit? I mean, you co-founded this organization, which is so commanding and so impressive. Would you please share how you did this and the vision and the mission of this organization?
Well, you have an incredible organization in the US, and I was fortunate enough to go to a seminar in London that was conducted by women of the Wine and Spirit. And I found it so motivational. And I was there with a colleague, Justine McGovern, who actually works for California Wine Institute. And we were both at the conference, and we both came out and said, that was amazing. We should do something like this in Ireland. So it was inspired by Californian organization, or the US organization. And the final concept and how we were going to do it, we hatched on a trip around California with basically Masters of Wine trip. And we sat on the bus between long haul destinations and planned out how we would launch this in Ireland. And the concept was that we wanted to set up basically a networking group for women in the industry that would tap into education and training, and men are very welcome to join. That would basically set up for all parts of the industry. And we came back and we set it up, and we've had winemaker talks, we've had lunches, we've had dinners. It's been much more difficult in the last year, obviously, because we physically can't get together. And more or less it has gone online, but it has definitely taken off and set up a network of women in the wine industry, like from the on-trade, from the off-trade, from distributors, from retail, and who have been able to get together, not recently, as I mentioned, but have supported each other. And we have, as I say, we do include men, but in fact, at the moment, it's very, very dominated by our women in the Irish wine industry. But we've had, support from Ayala Champagne, for example, and we've also had people travelling back from France, etc., to attend meetings and lunches and things. So it definitely has been something that has captured the imagination.
I love it. I'm going to send my application. I love it. A world of women, of inspiration and mentorship. Very exciting. And I really want to commend you, Lynne, for doing this. You know, my world, thanks to my grandmothers, my fabulous mother, my sister, my lovely wife and daughters, we have a team as a collection of wineries that is extremely dominant by women. We have maybe more women winemakers today than men as a company. And I'm very proud of it. In fact, the wines we're tasting today are all made by women. And it's Stephanie Putnam, it's Kathy George, it's Katie Carter, it's Sophie Drucker. So, you know, and it's not just to divide women or men, but women have such a talent with the senses. And that's what really excites me. When I hear there's a lady as a buyer or running a business, I'm always more enchanted because I know I'm going to be challenged in a very different way, which makes it very exciting. So congratulations for creating this. So Lynne, as I serve the red wine, I want you to tell us, why did you want to achieve the highest degree of wine diploma ever, which is the Master of Wine? Why? Why? You have children, you have a husband, you have a successful career. I mean, what the hell were you thinking? It's hell.
Yeah. Well, it was very much a personal ambition. And I basically was very keen to understand and become much more immersed in the global aspects of the industry. And I think that's something that the Master of Wine absolutely can deliver, because the student group is from all over the world. Masters of Wine are from all over the world. So
yes,
it definitely takes you outside of your comfort zone. I mean, everyone that's in the industry is a specialist in their own field. And when you have 5 examination papers starting in viticulture and ending in contemporary issues with winemaking and bottling and marketing and business papers and everything in between, I think that it was such a phenomenal program and such a huge learning experience. And the reality is that you meet incredible people on the course, but you are a specialist in your own area. So there's a huge amount of work to do to learn about aspects of the wine industry globally. And I was really interested to pursue that aspect of the Master of Wine. So it was tough. There were times I wondered why I was doing it.
Yes, I imagine.
Yeah. To the point that I had a husband, a good job, and a family, and I was shutting myself in the room for 2 days at the weekend, studying and tasting and so on. But I wouldn't swap it for the world, in the sense of the journey itself is just phenomenal. And you have to be humble and you realise what an incredible industry we're working for, and everyone has a part to play within that industry. And you learn
Yes.
so much from the other students, the support of the other Masters of Wine, and also for me, the support that I received from the wineries and winemakers that I knew, and people who were running wine companies were so generous with their time and with their access and with my endless questions, whether it was about the problems of trying to be vinified with tries to scrapes or whatever it happened to be. I called on so many people in the industry to help me get where I needed to go, and that was just, the help was phenomenal. And I think that you maybe start the journey thinking that you're very experienced and it's going to be fine, and very quickly realise that you need all the help of all your friends in the industry to get you through the various parts.
Absolutely. And you did it in a short period of time.
I started in 2009 and became a Master of Wine in 2015. So it's kind of average-ish a bit. It's not that short, but it's not it wasn't that long either. It's kind of middle. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having a job, having a family, and running a business, I mean, this is very commanding in 6 years. Congratulations. So, as a master of wine, why don't you give us your description of this next wine, which is, dear friends, the Raymond Cabernet Sauvignon that you could find, obviously, within Lynne's fabulous O'Brien stores throughout Ireland and England.
Well, when I opened this earlier, before we started to chat, the aromas of cassis was absolutely incredible, is what I thought when I opened the bottle and I put it into the glass. And that cassis is still with me. And I think it's evolved a bit in the glass because it has a slightly smoky, savoury note, which is really appealing, obviously, with Cabernet. And I know this is a cool climate Cabernet. It's grown at quite high elevation. And I think what that has done in terms of the flavour profile and in terms of the palate, it's got freshness and it's kept the acidity and it's kept the fruit very pure and forward. And still very much, this is the 16, but the fruit is still very much part of the overall structure of the wine. I mean, there are still hints, still slightly not primary altogether, but still very fresh, pure fruit notes, as well as some of this developing fruit notes, that's like smokiness and savoury tones, and a touch of spice there from the French oak, possibly, but absolutely delicious. And that fruit purity and acidity from the elevated vineyards, I think, comes through quite clearly on the wine. Very delicious.
What a description. This is a true master of wine descriptions, dear friends. As you can see, very organized, very disciplined, from vineyards to winemaking to taste. What about food on this one? What would you recommend?
Well, this to me isn't a huge blockbuster Cabernet. I think this is elegant and balanced, and the fruit is very much the personality of the wine and the freshness. So I think you could very happily, absolutely pair this with red meat, but I think it's actually delicate enough that it could go with white meats in a sauce. I think it would be good with cheeses as long as cheese wasn't too strong. So maybe we've got some delicious Irish cheeses, and I know that you've got delicious French cheeses. So I think even going into summer, it would be nicer with lighter barbecue type foods. But I wouldn't think it's not a really heavy Cabernet, which I love about it. It has elegance and balance. So I wouldn't necessarily think you absolutely have to pair this with red meat. I'd be looking for options in terms of how you could pair this Cabernet. And I think, lighter, fresher dishes would work with this as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Great compliments to our winemaking team, who are ladies again. So, Lynne, very importantly, you start in the wine trade through hospitality, then you evolve into running a great operation. You do your Master of Wine. The next evolution, in between, you create an amazing society for ladies. Then you make your own wine. What else is there? So tell us about this incredible new endeavor of yours that you obviously call low intervention wines. And I'm very excited to hear about this.
Well, basically, I worked with a winery no. When I was in the UK, I used to work with two people who worked with a winery in Navarra, which was called Palacio de la Vega, which was a cooperative. And those two people, one called Jose Maria Fiali, and the other was a lady winemaker, Alicia Esparvar, they basically left that winery and set up their own winery in Navarra, which is a small, modern, low intervention, gravity fed, sustainably farmed vineyards winery in Navarra. And they set that winery up with family and friends. And I happened to run into Jose Maria at a wine festival, a wine fair in Provine in Germany, which I know you know very well. And I basically bought his wines for O'Brien's, and we sell his wines in O'Brien's. But I had known him for, I suppose, 20 years or something at that stage. Hadn't seen him for a while. And then after I passed the Master of Wine, he said to me one day, if you ever want to make a wine, Lynne, can you let me know? We would be very happy to do it with you, and you could do what you like. It would be your decision as to everything, the vinification, the style, everything. So I didn't do anything for a while. And then my son, who was an art student at the time in Dublin, he's a jeweler now, he basically, he said to me, are you going to do something? Are you going to do something? He was pushing me. And I said, oh, I don't want to make a red wine. I don't think I want to make a white wine. I don't really know. And he said, well, why don't you make a rosé?
Why not?
And I went, oh, the confidence of youth, to be honest. And I said, well, that's a good idea. And then we were in a cafe having a coffee. And he said, I said, well, I don't have a brand name. And he said, okay, so let's think. And he literally came up with a brand name in about 2 seconds after Googling what Gaelic was for rose, which is rose. This is the wine. I can show you.
Yeah,
okay.
Show us. What a great label. Wow.
So
R-O-S.
ROS, rose. And basically that's Irish for rose, and it's also Scottish for rose. So basically, going on from there, we have a fantastic design. He designed the label based on my brief of a Charles Rennie Mackintosh vibe, arts and crafts, 1920s and 30s, which is a period I'm really interested in. And we have a fantastic designer who elaborated everything together. And in the meantime, Alicia and I were working on the wine, and we went for a wild fermentation rosé. It's finished in concrete tanks. It's gravity. There's no presses involved, and everything is very low intervention. And we're on our third vintage. We've just launched the 2020. So
very exciting! Wow.
Yeah. So
and when you say, explain us what you mean by low intervention.
Well, basically, Alicia is very, very low intervention in terms of in the winery. She's not into technology. She's not into using enzymes. She's not particularly into adjusting acidity or residual sugar levels. She doesn't really use any tricks, if you like, of the trade. It's all about the vineyard, the grape variety, and the wine then showing its own personality. And I'll be honest with you, Alicia and I, we've had our moments, because she was very against using native yeast. because it was a
Yes.
rosé wine and the difficulty of stability with native yeast with rosé. And the fermentation periods have been very, very long because of that. And certainly in the first vintage, that was quite stressful. And then the other thing is that she prefers a much darker rosé in colour, and I prefer a pale rosé, but she rightly pushed for the darker colour to manage to get the aromas correct and a really fruity flavour profile from the Garnacha, because she felt that if we didn't have enough skin contact, then the wine would be too, I suppose, too neutral in both the aroma and flavour profile. So it's evolving. We're 3 years in. This vintage, the wines are bone dry. They're all less than 5 grams residual. This vintage is paler again. It's from a cooler area in Navarra, but it's still quite warm. So the wines are all a 13.5 alcohol so far. And each vintage has been slightly different because we genuinely are trying to reflect the vineyard, the grape, and the vintage conditions that we have in that year. So it's an interesting, really exciting project, and I'm absolutely honoured that Tandem offered me the opportunity to do this.
So exciting. And I understand through the grapevine that you may do soon an Albarino. Is it true?
It is true. It's top secret at the moment. So another partner in Galicia called Lagarda Costa, which are really, again, a small winery. They only have around 11 hectares. And this has been a project. It's been about 2 and a bit years, nearly 3 years in the making, in the sense that we had mildew 2 vintages ago, so we couldn't do it, but we made the wine in 2020, and the wine is currently in egg, and it's 100% Albarino egg aged, and wild fermentation again, lady winemaker again, Sonia Costa, the daughter of the business, and then hopefully that will be coming out this summer. It's still in egg, though. We're giving it a couple of months.
So you've made 2 wines with 2 ladies. So this is the circle continues, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. I'm a big fan of Albarino myself, and this is really that Spanish style ownership with Pata Negra. Belota would be good. So
Yeah.
I'm coming to Ireland, or we'll meet in Spain. Either way.
Should be nice.
So, Lynne, a few last moments together, and we are abusing of your time, but what drives you, what inspires you to keep going with all the success and the phenomenal, evolution you've had in the wine world?
I don't really know. I mean, I like wine. I like buying wine. I like tasting wine. I like meeting people in the wine industry. I like going to wine regions. I like looking at vineyards. It's hard to, people ask me this all the time. I really, really love wine, everything about it. And I like just how diverse a topic it can be. And also just that we never can know everything. There's so much to learn. And the people that are in our industry are usually extremely passionate about what they're doing and extremely knowledgeable. So you are spending your time with people who are really motivated to do what they're doing as well. And I think that it's not really like a job. It's like a lovely pastime to some extent. It's very commercial. I have to make margins. I have to buy wines that sell. But all of that is also exciting, the negotiation, the calculation of prices, the calculation of volumes. It's a major juggling act, and I think I quite like juggling or something like that.
Well, that's absolutely true. And I say the same as you do. I don't think I've ever worked in my life. I don't even know what that letter means, WORK, because it's such a phenomenal natural evolution. Well said. So, Lynne, maybe the last question as I'm holding my last drop of the Cabernet, what would be, it's April 23rd, we're on a Friday, we have the beginning of spring, you are in beautiful Ireland, and what would be your message to everyone in the world tonight with us and in the next months, because people are going to watch you and again. And it's exciting because the world is with us. So what would be your message to everyone? And it doesn't have to be wine related. It could be anything you wish.
Yeah, well, my message would very much be look after yourself, look after your friends and family. Try to be very grateful for what we have, because obviously we've had a difficult time in the last few months as our time on earth, and I'm sure that we have a difficult few months ahead to some extent to try to get some equilibrium. So it's important to look after each other. I also think it's important to look after yourself and to do the things you love doing, whether that's preparing a nice meal, having a nice glass of wine, reading a good book, watching a movie, going for a walk. Try to make time for the things that are really, really important in life, is what I would say. Because it goes very quickly. And if your bucket list exists, then try to do things on your bucket list as well.
I love it. And let's give time. I love that as well. Even though you've lived in the fast lane, you've put yourself a very tight bucket list and you've achieved a lot of it. So, Lynne, I want to thank you so much on the behalf of all of us around the world of wine, as a great lady, a great inspiration that you are, a great mentor to a lot of us in the wine world, and an amazing, phenomenal leader. So to you, to your husband, to your children, and to your vision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynne.
Thank you for having me. We're delighted to be selling your wines through O'Brien's in Ireland, and we hope to see you soon for a Guinness.
I cannot wait. Of course, I'll be coming.
Thank you so much.
Lynne.